than usual. We can speak now to Adam Hancock, a journalist in Singapore, who can talk us through it. How much has the pandemic changed, do you think?
So the fact that they're even trying to host the election in the middle of the pandemic is interesting enough. Only a couple of weeks ago here in Singapore, we were still in a relative lockdown. So they've kind of had to come out of that and very quickly get everything ready to host the election. The health and subsequent economic crisis that's happening here has really made this election feel a bit more important, and there's been a lot more focus on it than usual. But in terms of how much it will actually change the result, well, there's 10 opposition parties this time, which is a record number, and there's a little bit more focus on the opposition than usual. But I wouldn't expect any shocks. The PAP, the People's Action Party, they've been in power here since independence in 1965. It's not really a case of if they will win. It's more a case of how much they will win by. So to put it into focus, anything less than 60% of the vote would be seen as a pretty shocking result for them. So we're not really talking about an election here that's going to be really a close call. It's more looking at the margin which the PAP will win by. And given that this is such an important time for Singapore, it may be that we see people kind of sticking with what they know and sticking with the party in power. So potentially, we could see a really big win for the People's Action Party.
What's the justification for holding, apparently at quite short notice, an election, given the sort of problems you were outlining because of the pandemic?
Well, the way the cycle works here, the ruling party had to try and get an election in the course of this year. So they've been basically waiting for the best slot and the best opportunity to hold the election. Campaigning here only has to be over a minimum of 9 days. So they can pretty quickly come out, call an election, and then it can take place. So they were basically waiting for the restrictions to ease, for people to be allowed out more frequently. So they've kind of picked the best moment possible where they can slot the election in. We, of course, don't know what's going to happen now. The economy has reopened. The number of infections is slowly starting to rise again. So it's all about timing it perfectly. And the ruling party also are calling for a strong mandate so they can control things and really get to work on trying to overcome these problems. So they kind of want to get out now, have the election, get some more power, and then be able to really make big decisions for the future of Singapore.
What are the logistics then of holding an election during a pandemic?
Well, it's pretty tricky to say the least. They've had to ban all public rallies. So it's been an election that's been basically held online. There's been virtual campaigns. There's been a lot of social media presence. In terms of voting today, they've had to put out a whole host more of polling stations. And people have specific slots that they can go down and vote. There's the usual social distancing rules as well. Everyone has to wear a mask, stand a metre apart. Some people have come back to Singapore to vote, and they are on what's called a stay-at-home notice. So they are basically staying in a hotel room for 14 days. They got the opportunity to vote yesterday. Somebody went round with a trolley with some ballot papers, went to the door of the hotel room and let them vote. So it's been very, very different to a usual election, although they do have a bit of an old school feel to them, elections here. There's lots of vehicles going around, playing music, campaigning, lots of flags. So it's quite charming, really, the process. But yeah, people who have seen many elections here have said this has been particularly unusual and particularly challenging as well.